was a elderly couple that was in court, and the husband wants to get a divorce, but the wife refuses to grant him one. So the judge says to them, says, "Madam, we've extensively interviewed you, and you're obviously not happy in the marriage. We've extensively interviewed your husband. He's obviously not happy in the marriage." He says, "Oh, I don't understand. It's like a lost cause. Obviously, this is not going to work. You've gone to marriage counseling. Why don't you just grant him a divorce?" She says, "I've been married to this monster for 45 years, and now I should do something to make him happy." She mentioned about the notion that once you get married, you think you become a marriage expert. That actually just reminded me of a story that happened to myself when I first moved to Los Angeles with Connie, and at the time Simi was a little baby. So I worked for Chabad Russian Synagogue in Los Angeles for about 4 years. I was all of 25 years old with a whole, not even a year of marriage under my belt. It was to me they were elderly at the time. They were probably in the 50s or 60s, and I was a 25-year-old kid. They came over to me, they wanted me to do marriage counseling for them. I'm like, you gotta be kidding. Rabbi Yistulman is, 5 years older than I. Just like, what do you, and no, they're insisted, we want to go to Rabbi Hanoka for marriage counseling. I'm thinking, you still know what you're getting into. What am I gonna tell you? I'm married all of not even a year. How much vast experience can I give you in marriage? They were insistent, and I'm scratching my head, I'm thinking, I don't get it. What do they want from me? It finally dawned on me at some point, perhaps, not asking for my marriage experience, because I didn't have much at the time. What I assumed they wanted was a Torah perspective. Somehow they felt that my conveyance of the Torah perspective is going to be more acceptable to them. And subsequently, I gave them whatever, I know what would happen afterwards, He came in actually on crutches 2 days later. No. Anyway, that's what happened. So we find ourselves in the month of Elul. The month of Elul, as you know, is a preparatory month, beginning our act together before Rosh Hashanah happens, which is on about 2.5 weeks or so. So Elul, the month of Elul itself, is a month really to connect to Hashem. That's what it's all about. It's thematic of connecting to God. In fact, there's an acronym that's commonly used for the word Elul in Hebrew. Aleph, Lamed, Vav, Lama, Ani, L'Dodi, V'Dodi, Li. A lot of people have that on their wedding bands. I am to my beloved is unto me, etc. It's all about creating this connection. The beloveds that we're talking about in that context are God and the Jewish people, we. But nonetheless, it's emblematic ultimately of our marriages, which are meant to mirror the marriage that God had with the Jewish people at Sinai some 3,300 and change years ago. I want to read to you a Hayom Yom. It's the book we read every day, actually, Elul aphorisms that the Rebbe put together from the 12th of Menachem Av. Quote, the Alter Rebbe repeated what the Mizritcha Maggid, his teacher, said, quoting the Baal Shem Tov. Quote, love your fellow like yourself is an interpretation of and commentary on love Hashem, your God. He who loves his fellow Jew loves God, because the Jew has within himself a part of God above. Therefore, when one loves the Jew, in his inner essence, one loves God. So invariably, when it comes to relationships, I'm going to harp a little bit on the marriage relationship end of it first. It's not the only relationship, obviously, that exists in the world. There are multiple types of relationships, whether it's marriage, friends, children, co-workers, shul people, strangers, whoever it may be. But I'll start with the marriage thing now that my wife has left the room. It's safe, I'm sure. She's sort of made a beeline. Free to speak freely? Oh, no, not really. Okay. Oh, the door's closed. Not by accident either. Okay, so what was the first marriage that happened in history? As you well know, was that of Adam and Eve, Adam and Chava. But the first marriage that's actually recorded in Torah was not Adam and Eve. It doesn't speak about the wedding of Adam and Eve, Adam and Chava in Torah. The first recorded marriage is between Isaac and Rebecca, Yitzchak and Rivka. In fact, some of the traditions we have today, for example, at what's called the Badekin, the veiling of the bride, that comes from Rebecca having been veiled, etc. That's the first recorded wedding in history. Now, Torah does not describe the entire smorgasbord, what they served, who the band was, etc. But nonetheless, it tells us about the wedding, the marriage, so to speak, and ultimately for this we learn about the sanctity of marriage. What is the first commandment in reality in the Torah? The first commandment that was given to us, so to speak, was actually given to Noah and his descendants after they left the ark. And that commandment is the mitzvah, what's known in Hebrew as Peru or Vu, be fruitful and multiply. which is supposed to entail marriage first. Today they've lost part of the sentence, but nonetheless, the order of things is supposed to be first marriage and then be fruitful and multiply. So as a marriage is obviously a very joyous occasion, typically the happiest day in a person's life, but our sages tell us something very interesting from the Talmud, from the Gemara in Sota, where it says, what is the Hebrew word for man? It's ish. It's spelled, I don't have a board here, and if I was fancy one day, I have a PowerPoint, but when I get to be Shmaya's age, I'll be able to figure out this. Okay? So ish is spelled Aleph Yud Shin. You familiar with the Hebrew? And the Hebrew word for woman is Isha, Aleph Shin Hey. What are the two common letters that both words have? Aleph and Shin, which spells the word Aish. Aish is fire. Okay? If you take the Yud out of the word Ish, and you take the Hey out of Isha, the Yud and the Hey represent God's name, I don't want to say it in vain. So if you take God essentially out of the marriage, you have fire and fire. So basically there are three partners in every marriage, not just two. There's obviously the husband and the wife, but in order to ensure a successful marriage, a successful relationship, one that's built on not just, being lovey-dovey and what have you, and everything's fantastic until the first week is over, is having God central in your marriage itself. To quote, all right, we'll get to that in a minute. L'chaim first, I'm going to have a little more of my ginseng, lemon, something. Thanks to Rabbi Richler, I don't eat anymore. So going back to this marriage of ours that mirrors the marriage of God to the Jewish people. So the Ani L'Dodi V'L'Dodi Li, I am to my beloved is unto me. This marriage that we're talking about that happened 3,300 years ago, the big marriage, with all kinds of, excitement. There was thunder, there was lightning. You talk about the show. It was quite a show at Sinai, that it was. But God really married us, and we, in a sense, were consecrated as a wife, in this case, to Hashem. What is a marriage contract? The Torah. So as a marriage contract today, ketubah, as it's called in Hebrew, stipulates all the obligations to the husband to the wife. If you ever read it, but it's important at least to know what it's, at least for the woman's side, should know what's in there. And the man should know what he's obligating himself to. So in essence, our contract with God is this Torah that we have. And it has all the instructions in terms of our day-to-day living, the mitzvot, and in addition to how we're meant to treat our fellow peoples, in particular our spouses. It's all in there. What I'm going to tell you is not stuff I made up on my own. This is all ultimately in Torah in some way, shape, or form. Don't try and find it, because I'm not sure where it says it, but on a serious note, it's in Torah. I'm going to cite a few examples of the importance of harmony, and I'm going to use the marriage paradigm for starters, and we'll get to other relationships later at about 4 or 5 o'clock. When it comes, for example, putting a mezuzah on your door, okay? You put a mezuzah on your doorpost, meant to be typically on the front door, at least on the right side going in. Is the mezuzah upright, or do you slant it one way or the other? Slanted, right? We tilt it inward. Why do we tilt the mezuzah? Is that just because the doorpost is a little thin? Maybe sometimes it didn't fit. I don't know. Whoever designed the mezuzah made it too big. Why do we even tilt the mezuzah? And the answer of a few answers, but one in particular is that a mezuzah, in a sense, is meant to bring a level of harmony and peace into a person's home. Tranquility. If a married couple goes into the house, and each one is always right, and that's always also right, okay? And neither one is willing to become subservient to the next, you're going to have nothing but fire and fire. So what does the mezuzah remind you? The moment you walk into your door, you're already walking in a little headband. You're leaning in to show some modicum, if you will, of willing to listen to your spouse, who might have good ideas from time to time. Okay? But on a serious note, it's one of the reasons why the mezuzah is actually tilted. It's meant to remind us, every time you go into your house and kiss the mezuzah, whatever it may be, is to remember that it's not just my way or the highway. There's 2 of us, and there are 3 of us, or however many of us there are in the house, and ultimately, shalom bayis, peace in the home, is considered to be paramount. You often hear people saying marriage is 50-50. It's not 50-50. If each spouse is going into the marriage saying, I'm going to give 50%, the other will give 50%, that's a recipe for disaster. True marriage, a true healthy marriage, is 100%. It doesn't mean that you're not going to fight. It doesn't mean you're not going to have arguments. Any marriage, the best of marriages, you're going to have disagreements. Because if you think about it, I mean, what are the odds if, well, I'm not sure what God was thinking, but nonetheless, in his broad, infinite mind, he decided to take two different genders who think very differently from each other, okay? Outside of the physiological differences, but just in terms of the emotions, women are much more emotional, men don't have emotions, if you ask most women, okay, etc. And then, and we think differently, we have different interests and cares and so on and so on. And God says, you know what, I want you to live together peacefully, in harmony, in the same room for God knows how many decades. If you were a betting person in Vegas, I can tell you right now, it's a lost bet. It's not, what the odds of working out? Not good. No, not good at all. But yet still in all, God had his divine plan in mind. When he put together Adam and Eve, or Adam and Chava, and then subsequently all the marriages thereafter, some 50, almost 800 years later, here we are today. And the same recipe has been used. Is every marriage happy? Well, it could be happier, some of them, but some of them are genuinely happy. Every marriage has its ups and downs, what have you, but overall, so around the curve, with God's help, it should be a happy marriage. How does that work? If you look at the statistics, okay? People love quoting statistics, so I'm going to quote statistics. I sound statistical. Okay? What is the number one reason for divorce in the United States? It's very quiet in this room now. I'm going to have a little more tea. Actually, money was not the number one. It's up there, though, with the big ones. It was lack of commitment. People get married with the notion, I'm going to try it. Like first of all, if you're in Hollywood, belong to Hollywood, the traditions get married at least 8 or 9 times, minimum, Because you try, you marry for a few weeks, a month or two, you love to go to Vegas, and I don't know, Elvis does a chuppah for you, and whatever it is. You wake up the next morning, you're not sure how you got married to somebody, and so it goes on. That's not normal living. But according to the statistics, quote unquote, in Jewish marriage, and marriages in general, and not Jewish marriages, it is said that the first marriages end in divorce 40 to 50% of the time. Second marriages, 60 to 67% of the time. Third marriages, 74% of the time. And if you live longer than that, call me, I'll figure it out. Okay? So, and they go through various stats as to various religions who has the greatest amount of divorces. I think the Protestants were up there with the highest ones. The Jews were somewhere on the order of about 9%. That's in the United States of America. So, if you look at these stats, take the Jewish part out of it, it's like, it's like a crapshoot. You flip a coin, the heads are going to stay married, tails are not, If it's 50%, that's not good odds. And it can be a very expensive mistake, as you well know, It's not something you want to just gamble with. So how do I ensure that when I decide to get married to whomever Mr. and Mrs. Lucky is going to be, that it's going to work? Well, I'll give you a few ideas for starters. First and foremost, commitment. Commitment means not just like, yes, I'm committed to get married and I'm not going to run out right before the chuppah and disappear, which also happens in some, not chuppah, I'm sorry, the ceremony. Where all of a sudden, more often than not, it's the groom that somehow got lost, whatever it may be. He had his buddies pick him up and they're off somewhere far away and there's no phone service. Okay? But commitment means that, yes, marriage, obviously, when you're engaged, everything's fantastic, the whole world's in love, whatever it may be, okay? And then reality hits. You get married, and all of a sudden, after the first week, the toilet seat doesn't come down anymore if you're a woman. It's like, I've heard about these nightmares. The toothpaste cap is gone. It's not like off. It's like it didn't exist. And all the annoying nuances and stereotypes that exist in marriage, they start coming. You know what I mean? One after the next. Some a little more egregious, some less egregious. There's a husband who obviously who does not know how to use a hamper. That's just clothes somehow. They land on the floor and magically they get washed and pressed and put into his drawer every week by the laundry fairy. Ask any husband, that's how it happens. It'll come up, it's always in my drawer. I don't know how it gets there. It's amazing. They wear the clothes and they come back by themselves. Okay? So these can be annoyances, obviously, to the wife. I'll speak as from the husband's perspective. My wife is now no longer in the room, probably won't speak on the woman's perspective. But yeah, she's staying very far away, carefully. So, on a serious note, so these can be annoyances, and they're going to be annoyances, because you're taking two very different people, outside of the fact, two separate genders. You're taking two people who grew up in two different households, each one with its own mishigas, and everybody's family's got its own mishigas. Forget the crazy uncle, you know what I mean? Everybody's got their own thing going on, all right? And you have different interests and whatever it is, different moods and what have you, and men don't really understand the women moods, and women can't understand why the men don't understand their moods, and whatever, as it goes on and on. And you say, it's got to work. You make it work. You know what I mean? You sign the paper. We were there. You put the ring. See, you got a ring. You got a ring, whatever it is. If a person is not committed to making it work, to put in the work, quote unquote, to make the commitment work, then it's not going to work. You're right. Because it's not convenient. If a marriage is based on contingencies, like if I get A, B, C, or D, then the marriage will work. A marriage, true love, cannot be based on anything outside of the love itself. So if there's a third item, whether it's money or anything else, at some point, once that other object is gone, then the love is gone. Because it's a love based on something else, and either a contingency, ulterior motive, whatever it may be. So there has to be a deep down love between the two people to ensure that it's going to be something which remains eternal. When God created us, okay, we all have an neshama, we all have a soul. So it's explained, our sages explained to us, and in reality, every one of us has half a soul, which explains my weight loss. The other half. So, where's my other half of my soul? I mean, what, God couldn't afford the whole soul? Was there a shortage of souls in heaven? What's this half a soul thing? So our sages tell us that invariably, your other half of your soul is what they call your bashert, if you want, in Yiddish, but your intended one. When a person marries their intended one, it completes, in essence, what really was one originally at some point or another, in the pre-conception stage, if you will. And then they got separated somewhere in heaven, the two halves of the soul, and when a person gets married, the two halves come back together again. So in reality, when a person is getting married to their spouse, to their bashert, you're not really marrying something that's foreign to you. As much as it sounds foreign, and I made it sound foreign, it is foreign, but nonetheless, spiritually speaking, it's not foreign. You're really coming back to what you are, your other half, the other half of you. If you saw half of you someplace else, would you not recognize the other half of you? Well, sometimes we'd like to lose part of the half of us and not see the other. But the good part, if you want to see that, you would recognize the other half from a million miles away. That in reality is a person's true bashert, their true intended one. And that's why in reality, as much as the odds are stacked against a marriage from working, but in Hashem's system, that's why it works. Yes, it takes work. As I said, you got to put the work in. You have to have commitment. You know, it doesn't happen by itself. Every marriage requires work. But in reality, you're working on not just someone else or something else, you're working on yourself. So it's true that, you know, it's hard to love somebody else as much as you love yourself. Okay, but nonetheless, true love, when you love your spouse, in reality, you are loving yourself. You're not loving a different person. You may physically be a different person. But in reality, it's the other half of who you are. Do you have a question?
Yeah. This half and half soul. So when I married my wife, I found my other half, right? What about her half?
You're the other half.
But there's two people we're talking about, so I'm a little bit lost. Because
So am I.
so in other words, we didn't always have. You said in the beginning.
So there's a bashert. Okay, that gets into, so second marriages, is that what you're asking?
No. I'm talking just generically on a marriage. Before a person comes out, half of their soul goes somewhere else, right? So you don't really start off with a whole soul. You're in a half zone all the time. But I'm just saying that from my perspective, that's fine. But wouldn't the other person have to have the other half too? It's just
She has your half.
Oh,
You have each other's halves.
Oh, okay, all right. It's a little confusing though.
You're half, she's half. The two halves come together, you get one whole.
Okay, all right.
That's basically what it is.
All right.
Okay, so some practical tips for making a marriage work. So Baruch Hashem, I've been married for a couple months now, and a little more experience than I did 5 years ago. Marriages at times obviously get stale, like anything else. It's repetitive. They're always there. People get bored of each other, whatever it may be. They need some new excitement in life, which is where problems begin to start, depending on where they look for their excitement, etc. But as a means of mitigating perhaps some of those issues, is first and foremost to make sure that your spouse, no matter whom he or she may be, always comes first. So for example, nowadays we have cell phones. It's one of the greatest distractions ever discovered in the world, okay? And there's always a good reason to be on our cell phones, because, I mean, God forbid you should miss anything that's posted on Instagram or some other TikTok thing which is earth-shattering and is going to really make your day. You need to see it immediately, okay? But if you're thinking a little more clearly and begin to realize that when you're sitting and you're talking to your spouse or whatever it may be, you make time to each other, or your spouse calls you on the phone. You're busy, you're at work. I'll give you an example. You're at work, you're busy, you got a million and one things happening. Your husband and or your wife calls you. Do you answer?
Absolutely.
That was the right answer. That's correct. Did you learn that the hard way or learn that? Okay.
Intuitively.
So intuitively we knew that, obviously, yes. We're all born that way. The answer is that you should answer. I mean, if it's something pressing, you can't, at least, a response, I'll call you back in 5 minutes or whatever the story may be. But not like that the spouse is playing third fiddle to whatever else is going on. That has to become your primary focus, number one. Number two, make time for each other. So whether it is, if you have little kids at home, needless to say, your life becomes a little frazzled. They talk about what's called Shana Rishona. Those are the magic words in the Jewish religion. It's the first year of marriage. The idyllic time. It's also the time when those people are most likely to have their marriages dissolved if they don't work out well. It's the most challenging year. At the same time, it's also considered to be the special year. You're supposed to spend as much time as you can with each other to get to know each other. You only know each other so well before you got married. And even once you're married, till you're married enough years, you finish each other's sentences, you don't have to even talk to each other because you already know what the other one's thinking, right? You should still talk to each other. But to make time to go out, you want to call it date night, you want to do date week, date month, vacation, staycation, whatever it may be, ultimately to take ourselves away from the daily rigmarole, if you will, which sometimes is hard to leave from because that's what we do. I gotta make a living. It's important, blah, blah, blah. Well, is your life, your wife, your husband not important? They should be more important than everything else. From a man's perspective, this I learned at my mom. A lot of talking. Whatever I say now is going to come back to me. Bobby, let you know that, okay? So, as I've learned as a husband, I'm speaking from a man's perspective only right now. Often women only need to be heard. They're not looking for the husband to fix the problem, give them an answer to the problem, etc. Men don't understand that. Men understand problem, fix, move on. It doesn't work that way in a women's world. And that becomes can be a bit of a thorn in the side in many relationships where the husband is listening and the wife says whatever it may be. So, okay, so let's, no, you don't understand. But I did understand, it's not that complicated. I mean, how hard is it? No, and they repeat it again, or whatever it may be. And then there's the emotions, and guys, they're not sure what to do with it. It's like, hello. They didn't teach me this in yeshiva, you know what I mean? My roommates were never this way. If I didn't like them, I didn't like them. Now the end of the story. So this is a learned process, and yes, they try to inculcate these sensitivities to whatever degree it may be in younger men and women before they get married. But in reality, as much as you can teach them today till tomorrow, you can't buy experience, okay? So this is something I'm talking to the guys out there, that often it's not a matter of giving the answer. I mean, at times the answers have to come, but just to listen in and of itself, you already bought yourself a lot of points. Another thing is to give each other space. So you're living in the same house, ostensibly, and in the same room, hopefully as well, and not one of the two was relegated to the other bedroom. But to give each other space. Yes, there are couples, especially when you have the empty nest syndrome. The kids have grown up, they've gone off to college, work, or whatever it may be, they're older. And it's just the two of you at home all day, every day. It's like, oh, jeez, okay, what are we doing now? We already talked, didn't we talk yesterday? We got to talk yesterday. How often do we have to talk? What are we supposed to talk about? We don't have to talk about the kids. They're taking care of themselves. They're working now. They're all making money. So, yes, there's an adjustment. There's no question about it. But at the same time, it's necessary to understand that each couple should give the other person space. It's not, you can't always be on top of them, cloister them, what have you. The mother-hen thing doesn't work. Everybody needs their own downtime, a little, with a reason, obviously. Some downtime, etc., to do their, whatever their thing is, go into your Zen room, get into the lotus position, or don't. I don't, because I would never get out if it was going to be a one-way trip. But whatever floats your boat. To show true interest in each other's lives, Respect each other. A wife, in particular, should never be in fear of her husband. Ruling the house with fear is a recipe for disaster, not just to children, to the spouse, but to the children as well. So times have changed. Looking around the room, I can say probably for the vast majority of everybody sitting here, we grew up where you didn't behave, you put a book in the back of your pants and hope that that's going to help. Okay? That's what it was. In those days, corporal punishment was the norm. At home, in school, of course in school, if you went to yeshiva, that was like par for the course. You know what I'm saying? A good frask, they called it in Yiddish. You know, when you came home, you complained to your parents that the teacher hit me, and they said, because you deserved it. You know, no sympathy there. Things have changed completely. That whole era of discipline, if you will, is a bygone era. Nowadays, discipline, the generations have changed, and therefore, A, to each other, and B, also a little more so to your kids, it has to be done with love. Yes, there should be a certain feeling of reverence, certainly from children to their parents, but at the same time, and also from spouse to spouse. It's not just a matter of loving each other, being best friends, and then trashing each other also at the same time. You wouldn't trash, ultimately, something that you truly love, would you? If something was really meaningful to you, you're going to trash it? You wouldn't. So don't trash your spouses either. Okay? You may not always be happy with your spouse. You may get angry, which happens. We're all human. But at the same time, obviously, be careful what you say. And the person, obviously, once it's escaped your mouth, there's no taking it back. The example cited when it comes to that of Lashon Hara, of slander, is as follows. Once a person says something, you have no control where it goes. Like nowadays, I guess the equivalent would be once you typed it into whatever it is, right? On a computer, it's there for all posterity, you know what I mean, until the Mashiach comes. But the example that was cited many years ago, pre-computer, was that if you were to take a pillowcase with feathers in it to the top of a building, and you opened up the pillowcase, and you dumped out all the feathers, 50 floors up. So the feathers are all over the place. And then someone comes and says to you, no, you gotta collect all the feathers. You're going to go find all the feathers. It's not going to happen. That's what speech is like. Once you say something and it's out of your mouth, it's like those feathers flying all over the place. You can apologize from today till tomorrow, and you should. But at the same time, it's out. So, yes, should a spouse forgive another spouse? Yes. Should a spouse ask for forgiveness? Yes. Sometimes it's very hard to ask for forgiveness, but notwithstanding, forgiveness should certainly be requested and be asked. And don't be an auction, no, come back another time. You know what I mean? They talk about, man is giving his wife the silent treatment. They got into a fight, too. You know what I'm talking about? Silent treatment. They don't talk to each other for, could be a few days, a week, whatever it may be. You're living in the same house, but the silent treatment's going on. So, the man realizes the next day he has an early morning flight. He needs to wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning. He has trouble waking up at night, in the morning. So, not wanting to be the first one to break the silence, because she should really break the silence first. Right? He didn't want to lose, so he wrote on a piece of paper next to the nightstand, please wake me up at 5 o'clock. Okay? So sure enough, he wakes up the next morning only to discover it's 9 a.m. His flight left hours early. He is furious. He's about to go see why she didn't wake him up, and he notices a piece of paper on his side of the bed that says, honey, it's 5 o'clock, time for you to get up. You can do it any way you'd like.
Oh boy.
Yeah. So when it comes to talking to each other, first and foremost, if your spouse has a particular accomplishment, you should feel happy about their accomplishment. There are times that envy sets in. It's like, she's so good at this, or he's so good at that, and I'm not good at this, and I'm not good at that, etc. It's not a competition between a husband and a wife. It should never be a competition between a husband and a wife. You should complement each other. You're two different people with two different levels of strength, two strengths, if you will, or multiple strengths, with different talents. And the point of the matter is to bring them all together and make them work. Am I exactly the same as my wife? She would probably say, no. She would say nothing. I'm going to be in a lot of trouble when this is over, by the way. Anybody have an extra bedroom in their house, by the way, for tomorrow night? Yeah. And it's being recorded in the house, A real idiot, I am. Anyway, but on a serious note, you see in a great accomplishment of your spouse, you should feel happy about that. It's like, wow, I'm proud of you for whatever you may have done. That was an amazing thing. And actually convey that, not just to think it in your head. Because as much as It's usually when the woman doesn't understand why the man didn't get the hint to take out the garbage because she didn't ask him, but intuitively men should know they're supposed to take out the garbage and pick up the laundry. Well, guess what? Men don't intuitively know much of any of this. It's not part of our programming. You know, we've got a different chip, and it doesn't have that on the chip. If you need something done, I tell this to many couples, in particular when a wife is frustrated, the husband is not doing A, B, C, or D, just ask him to do it. It's not like he doesn't want to do it. He'll do it, but just ask him. He doesn't, but he should know on his own. I said, that's good. Keep quiet, no problem. He should know on his own. He's not going to know on his own. It's not going to happen. So once you understand he's not going to know on his own, then go out there and just ask him. He'd be happy to do it for you. Okay? Okay. I don't think I put enough scotch in the I found online the 10 Commandments of married life. I think I'll read them anyway. Marriages are made in heaven, but so again are thunder and lightning. Commandment number 2, you want your wife to listen and pay strict attention to every word you say, talk in your sleep. Commandment number 3, marriage is grand, divorce is at least 100 grand. Commandment 4, married life is very frustrating. In the first year of marriage, the man speaks and the woman listens. In the second year, the woman speaks and the man listens. In the third year, they both speak and the neighbors listen. Commandment number 5, when a man opens the door of his car for his wife, he can be sure of one thing. Either the car is new or the wife is new. Commandment 6, marriage is when a man and woman become as one. The trouble starts when they try to decide which one. Number 7, before marriage, a man will lie awake all night thinking about something she said. After a marriage, he will fall asleep before she finishes. Number 8, Commandment 8, every man wants a wife who's beautiful, understanding, economical, and a good cook. But the law allows only one wife. Commandment number 9, this is equal opportunity bashing, so marriage and love are purely a matter of chemistry. That's why the wife treats the husband like toxic waste. Commandment number 10, a man is incomplete until he is married. After that, he is finished. And we got those out of the way. We did the commandments. Also, by the way, if your spouse says they'll do something, there's no reason to remind him every 6 months. Remember that. I'll read a few more while I'm at it already. Marriage relationships, when one person is always right, the other one is the husband. If you at first don't succeed, try it the way your wife told you to. Right? The best way to get to do something is to suggest, or perhaps this is the best way for a wife to get the husband to do something, is to suggest you're too old to do it. Alright, we'll do the rest of it for later. Anyway, so in order to procure a successful relationship, obviously as we see, it takes work. It takes being there for each other and going through the ups and downs, and yes, it's not always easy, but to understand that you make up for each other's faults and complement each other's talents, etc. I often get asked, what is the Chabad dating system like? It's a little different, if you haven't figured that out yet, than the secular dating system. So for starters, there's no social dating, okay, in the religious world. It's not just Chabad, but I'll speak from the Chabad perspective. That's the route I took. It was the cheapest package on the secular world, okay? But it's very unlike the secular world, where there's social dating, and then through your high school years and college, there's the ups and downs, the breakups. She loves me not, and then you pull off the flowers, whatever it may be, and then he dumped me, she dumped me, whatever it may be. Baruch Hashem, I didn't have that part of my life. But when it was time to date, it's not just for social company, to find someone to hang out with. Dating is done strictly for the sake of marriage. So yes, it may mean dating multiple people until you find the right one, which is fine. But again, the premise behind it is it's strictly done for the sake of marriage, which is why, for the most part, dating is typically a process that will take a month, 2, sometimes 3. There's no magic number. But you go out as many times as necessary to see first and foremost if you have common interests. And obviously there has to be chemistry between the two of you. And if you like each other enough, and it all works out, then you throw all caution to the wind. No. You screw up your courage, and the man gets down on one knee, which may still hurt later on, but nonetheless, and he proposes, however he proposes. It doesn't have to be on one knee. We actually, in the Chabad circles, when I got engaged to my wife, the Rebbe was still alive, and the tradition was that you would write into the Rebbe, you write a letter to the Rebbe before you went out, asking about the appropriateness of the proposed match. Yeah, there's a masim appropriate or not, and the Rebbe answered whatever, hopefully the answer would be yes. It wasn't always yes, but for the most part. And then you dated, so there's no physical contact during dating, since men and women don't touch each other in the religious world outside of their immediate family members and the like, so there's no physical contact, that's out the window. So you're only going to get to know each other so much, if you will, through this dating process. And again, you're going out to see if you have common values. For the most part, you've done a lot of research in advance of going out to the person. There's not a lot of blind dating that goes on. It happens, but I would say the vast majority of dates are not just blind dates. You or your family, someone has done some research, they've contacted the FBI, CIA, whatever it may be, get a whole rap sheet on you, and they know more about you than you know about you. So, and then they decide either it's going to work or it's not. It looks like it's going to work, so we'll give it a shot. And then you go out for however many times it may be. You go to hotel lobbies. When you get bored of that, you go to another hotel lobby, and you go out wherever you're going to go. You're going to play a game, bowling, walking, whatever you decide to do. And then, once you've sort of come to the conclusion that I like this person, and there's chemistry there, what have you, so then what was done back in the day when the Rebbe was physically still here, you would write into the Rebbe asking for a bracha, for a blessing, for the engagement. And you wouldn't formally get engaged until you received that answer. So you may have proposed, but you didn't tell anyone else about the proposal until the Rebbe gave his, so to speak, his stamp of approval. Just on a personal note, my wife won't mind me talking about her personal life at all. So, but we wrote into the Rebbe on a Friday. Okay, the Rebbe that Friday in particular went to go pray at the previous Rebbe's gravesite, where the Rebbe's buried now, adjacent to him. And the Rebbe came back very late on Friday afternoon before Shabbos. Our Rebbe didn't often answer letters on Fridays. It was a very busy day, but for these types of things, Rebbe would usually answer quickly because obviously the future bride and groom are on pins and needles, wanting to tell everybody, but you don't say anything until you got the okay. So the answer, there was no answers on that Friday. It was too late. The Rebbe came back close to candlelight time. And Saturday night, the Rebbe typically did not answer either. That Saturday night, it was summer Saturday night. It was like in July. Beginning of July, the Rebbe answered, and we got our answer, Baruch Hashem, that's why we're married now. We got our stamp of approval from the Rebbe. There was a few other couples that got engaged the same night, and that formalized our engagement. Then you make an engagement party, a vart, or whatever, chaim, whatever they call it nowadays, and you move on from there. But the whole experience is a whole different experience. It's not, you're not dating for months and months or years, if you will, and even once you get engaged, it's not typically what we call a long engagement. So again, there's no magical number to the engagements. It can be enough time to get the wedding together. 3 months, 2 months, 4 months, something reasonable, but not like engaged for a year type of thing, or 2 years, whatever. When you get married at some point when the sun rises one day in the west and sets in the east, that's a good day to get married, in June. It doesn't work that way. You set a date that's as close as possible. Why? From a strictly halachic perspective, since there's no physical contact between the two of you until you get married, and it's obviously not easy. It's going to be, everybody's got hormones. I don't care what you look like and where you came from. So the shorter the engagement, the easier, physically speaking, it is on the couple, and thus that's something which was strongly encouraged by the Rebbe. And that's become sort of, if you will, the MO of the vast majority of Chabad engagements till today. Although today, obviously, the Rebbe is not physically alive, so people will go to New York often, if they can, to go pray at the Ohel, the Rebbe's gravesite. They'll usually go with their families if they can, and then the boy and the girl go. They write their own letters to the Rebbe asking for whatever blessings they want. They pray, they come out, and then it's bona fide, so to speak, cemented as such. If anybody wants to get engaged in the near future, please call me. I'm happy to give you the whole set of instructions, how to do, what to do, when to do. Anybody have any questions before we move on here? Good. Very educated crowd. Again, no questions.
I have.
You have questions.
I have. Do people, once this happens, do they stay with each other? I mean, what's the divorce?
Once what happened? So the divorce rate in the Chabad world, in the religious world in general, is low. I don't know the exact number. Those stats I couldn't find in my group. Okay, it does exist. People do get divorced. Listen, it happens. Marriages go south, and there's no mitzvah to be miserable. So actual divorce is a mitzvah actually in Torah. It's one of the things brought down in Torah. Although it should be a last resort, and not a first resort. But they do happen, but they happen far less. I think to a large degree, part of it is a commitment to understand the significance of getting married. It's not just we're going to try it. And perhaps on a pragmatic level, there's often more kids involved in the religious world. You have multiple kids or whatever it is, and that obviously makes things a little more messy. Again, does it happen when people are married with kids? It does. But it's a much lower number. And I think a lot of it is because of the ideals that both the husband and wife have. And the understanding of what it's going to take to make a marriage work. That, I'm not just because I'm frustrated and I don't like this about him or I don't like this about her or what have you. So you work on it. You know what I mean? You work and keep working on it. I mean, you can work on it for 40 years, but 50 years, or whatever it may be, but to keep working at it. And understand that it's not always easy. You're right, and people can make changes, although I tell people emphatically, never marry somebody from the onset with the intent of changing them. That's a bad mistake, okay? When we get married, he's going to change. You have something coming, okay? It doesn't work that way. People try to accommodate what have you, but marrying someone with the intent of changing them from the get-go is a bad idea. But once a person is married to whoever it may be, you do your utmost to make it work. It's hard.
I've been married 52 years.
All right, here we go. So after we finish silver, gold, diamonds, what happens at 50?
Confetti.
Huh?
Confetti.
And confetti. and that's the recipe for a happy marriage. 50 years, you give each other confetti. Okay. I'm not sure when I'm supposed to finish. I think about nowish. But we spoke mostly about marriages in general in terms of relationships, but just to kind of touch on relationships in general, which can be either child-parents, siblings, co-workers, what have you. So the reality is that no two people are created alike, and no two souls are the same either. The reason why every one of us is an independent identity, even if you're an identical twin, if you were, you're still different from your twin. Hashem made it, it may not be biologically different or DNA imprint, but from a soul perspective, each one has their own mission in life which cannot be fulfilled by somebody else. And that applies obviously universally to all of us. So bearing that in mind, because we all have a different, in a sense, mission to be done in this world, whatever it may be, we're given different packaging. Some people are given more talents on this side, some people are given more talents on that side, whatever it may be to help fulfill your purpose of creation. So at times, people would become naturally frustrated by somebody else who doesn't toe the party line, your party line, right? Because you see it this way, and what they're doing is emphatically wrong. Because only I can be right, obviously, right? That's correct. And it becomes frustrating, and this creates, machlokes, division, conflict, and whatnot, not just within families, but with friends, etc. Because we don't give the other person the benefit of the doubt necessarily. We don't give them space. We're very good at self-rationalizing, because if we do something wrong, it was an extenuating circumstance, and God will certainly understand. If you did it, so Sabrenna Gehenna, you should burn in hell. It's an attitude that people have. It's a wrong attitude to have. So a lot of it is, as the French put it in Yiddish, c'est la vie, live and let live. Just, not everybody's going to be like you, and they're not created to be like you. They can be your own siblings. Siblings can be annoying sometimes. Sometimes, right? But but ultimately, yes, you grew up in the same house with your brothers or your sisters or your parents. You get angry at your parents, and they don't talk to their parents for a good many years. Or this one doesn't talk to that one. It's not a healthy place to be, and sadly, it happens countless times. Why? A lot of it's based on misunderstandings. More often than not, it started with some little minuscule what have you, and before you know it, there's an entire mountain out of nothing. What is it, the Wyatts, the ones who were fighting, the ones who were shooting each other back in the The Wild West days, the YS and some other family. Yeah, that's what I was thinking about. I was thinking Goldberg and Cohen, but whatever, yeah. So at some point, enough generations went by, they didn't even know why they're fighting with each other anymore, because the great-great-great-great-grandpappy didn't like this one, shot that one, so we don't talk. But no one even knows today, and that's what happens sadly in families as well. They're not even sure why we're fighting. Like, we just don't talk to these cousins. Why? I don't know. Maybe they don't talk. That's basically I have no idea, which we never talked to them. My parents said we have nothing to do with them. It's sad, but it's true. So invariably, in particular in this month, the month of Elul, which is the month of, in a sense, self-introspection, of coming closer to Hashem, coming closer to ourselves, coming closer to our loved ones. It is a time to take stock, to let bygones be bygones, and really let them be bygones. Not some lip service, and not some sort of like, cutesy note. I sent them a WhatsApp. I said I'm sorry. They didn't respond. That's not, I'm sorry on a WhatsApp. Come on. Before WhatsApp, what did you do? You actually called someone, you said you met them. Hey, that's truly the way to apologize or to get reunited with somebody. Not sending them a sort of a cold message via some electronic, whatever it may be. And by doing this, no doubt, first and foremost, it's freeing yourself. You'll feel much better about yourself, and obviously it frees the other person as well. It's creating goodwill, creating love in the world, and when you're able to, in a sense, to effectuate love to other people, needless to say, it's responsive, it's reciprocal. Hamayim upon him, it says regarding God. When we show God a good face, so to speak, we do our utmost, God reciprocates in kind. It's like a mirror image looking in the water. So, but it takes putting your best foot forward first. And when we do this, no doubt, to summarize, in the words of the Mishnah, Habal Latar Messiah, so it says when a person comes to purify themselves in front of God, we don't always know how to do it. It's like, I wish it was a manual that said exactly what to do, so God's going to be happy. We don't always know exactly what to do. But God says, fine, that's not a problem. At least come to purify yourself, and then I will help you. That huge hand, the anthropomorphic hand from heaven comes down and extends his arm out to schlep you to wherever you have to go to help you out. It should be with brachas for health, chaim with health, with wealth, and lots of nachas from your families, and we should accept the coming Mashiach now.
Amen. Amen.